Del made it. Del, welcome. Del is another fellow traveler. And while we wait for everybody to trickle in, Chris, you were here. Nice to have you here. Take a moment to settle your body. If you're sitting or lying or standing, letting everything release through your body to the ground. You're not holding weight anywhere in your body. Softening the neck, the jaw, the throat, the base of the tongue, so that all of this tissue that normally pulls your head down or pulls your chest up, you let that soften so that it opens and your neck lengthens. You become a millimeter or two taller in the direction of the top of the head. But not because you're pushing up, but because you let everything go. And if you do it right, that also releases the tops of the shoulders, top of the chest, the upper back. The scapula is released down the back. As you release your shoulders, the elbows hang as though they become heavy, but just because you let them go, not because you're pushing them down. Anything that we are normally doing to hold our chest up, simply let it fall. So we empty the chest, but we're emptying it of force. We're making it so that chi can flow through there without inhibition. The upper back softens, the belly releases. So the chest releases and sinks down. The chi is released down to the lower abdomen, space behind the navel specifically. This helps to soften the lower back, which helps the pelvis to settle into the appropriate position. The weight rests just in front of the sitting bones so that you're not collapsed back, you're not sitting too far forward, you're not arching your back. Everything is released through your body and, for me, into the chair. Positioning your legs so that they help you be relatively stable, and then you just let them go. There's just nothing in them at all. Totally soft. Let your feet be relaxed. The same with your arms to your hands. Finding a way to let everything go. Notice if there is any restriction or inhibition around the breath. And be sure that you let that go as well. So you're not trying to pull or push your breath around, but instead you just make space and the breath comes in on its own. When you find your mind wandering away, release whatever it is that's grabbing it. Remember that the mind wandering off is a kind of mental tension. Your mind is gripping and then moving away. It's creating something other than what's really happening. So you simply notice the distraction, whatever it is, the idea that you have, and just become disinterested in it. Look at it and notice that it's less interesting than what's actually happening. It's far less beautiful than I am, than the present moment is. And you allow your awareness to fall back into the present moment. All on its own. This is the primary Daoist principle. Doing non-doing. You're getting out of the way. You're creating the conditions within which things happen on their own. As you inhale, allow your system to become still and free, expansive. As you exhale, you can release through your mouth if you'd like, and allow your whole body to relax further. Just another couple of minutes. Remember that we only put warm hands on the body. Bring lots of qi and blood and warmth into your hands, all the way to your fingertips if you can. If your hands are very cold, just go put them under some hot water for a while, or grab a cup of tea. And then, palms on the very crown of the head. Again, just enough pressure to sink into that space beneath the skin. You're not pushing down on the top of your head. You're not trying to compress things into your skull. Instead, you're softening that fine layer. Gentle circles. Most of these circles in the form, I do 36 in both times, both directions. But if you want to do more or fewer, feel free to adjust. In the official form on the paper, many of these say 100 rotations, but that would make the form take hours. And so we cut it down to 36. Depending on your hairstyle, softening all the way from the eyebrows to the back of the head. emphasizing this line that runs along the corner edge of the head here, but all over the scalp, softening. Taking your time. And placing the palm on the back of your head, the thumb, rubbing a line just at the base of the skull. A reminder for those who practice Qigong or Taiji that as your elbow comes up, your shoulder blade actually softens down your back. Don't pull it down your back, but do release it, so that every time your arm goes up, you're actually relaxing your shoulder further. And remember that if that's too difficult, that there's lots of good Qigong and Tai Chi stuff out there, especially on my channel. Learning how to soften. And at some point, when you're ready, also the neck, the side of the neck, as well as the base of the neck, right below C7, there's a point called the Great Hammer. Gently opening and warming that fascial layer beneath the skin, and allowing that sense of warmth to soak into the skin and the tissue. Hopefully at the end of every one of these movements, there's a sense of heat that begins to pour back out of the body, a gentle warmth radiating from the tissues. Take as long as you need, especially if you've been out in the wind or the cold, to warm and release the exterior of the body. Allowing the warmth in your palms to soak into the space around and behind the eyes, easing the tissue there, opening, and then ironing off the sides 3 times. Allowing the softness of your hands also to communicate with your body. The softer and more gentle, kind, relaxed your hands are, that has a kind of communication with your tissues and starts them to also learn how to release. Opening that point on the side of the nose. Just sinking below the surface of the skin. Your awareness following into that space. And then when you're ready, we'll draw a line from this point up to the hairline, back and forth, warming that fascial line. And then circling around the bony orbit around the eye. Of course, never pushing directly on the eyeball itself. Soft, gentle circles, warming and releasing the tissue. As you make these circles, emphasizing on all of these positions in the body, but also on the face, the direction that releases away from the pattern of tension. So the face tends to clench and grip toward the center, like a fist in the middle of your face. And so in all of these circles, emphasize the part of the circle that opens away from those spaces. Usually people can feel it. They know what I'm talking about. In both directions. And then with the inside of the index finger, usually that finger, simply warming and drawing a line up and down. Again, that space between the eyebrows as well as the very inside end of the eyebrows. There's some wonderful acupuncture points there. We're just relieving this gripping tension that accumulates over a lifetime here. And then gently pulling outward. Notice as you kind of iron this area of the eyebrow from inside to outside, that you are able to push not hard enough so that you're barely contacting the skin at all. You can also push too hard, so you're pressing all of this tissue, the blood in the vessels, pressing it hard against the bone and actually causing blockage. And there's a space in the middle there where you're warming, sinking beneath the skin, helping circulation without obstructing anything. And the warmth of your awareness and your kind feelings soaks into the body here as well. And then that space just between the end of the eye and the end of the eyebrow for most people. And the outside of that ocular ridge, that bony ridge. Simple circles, warming and softening. You can use your whole hand if you like. I'm just pointing to make it easier to see. Both directions. And then we're going to release the corner of the jaw here. Fingers sinking in, warming the very top of the musculature that is often gripping the jaw. And then from that point up to a point here on the ear, just in that line in front of the ear, in front of that little bit of cartilage there called the tragus. You can open your jaw just slightly to help slightly access that area. And then a line between those 2 points, warming and softening it with your fingers, and some fingers as well, just behind the ear, warming and releasing all of this space behind the ear. And then over the ears themselves. Remember that you want to create movement in this area until a sense of warmth begins pouring into your ear. Classically, they say as though warm oil is pouring into your ear, and a sense of warmth starts to radiate back out. So you would continue until you have that sensation in most of the tissues in your body. We'll also rub the edges of the ears and then compress them 9 or 18 times. And on the last compression, tap your fingers on the back of your head. Hands soft. Throughout this whole set, your hands should become softer and softer from practice. Of course, make sure that your hands are not only warm, but clean as you release away from that clenching in the center of the face. releasing and softening the sides of the neck, allowing your awareness to soak into that layer just beneath the skin. The capacity of your awareness to move into your physical frame, through your tissues, through your body, is a very important part of learning how to function within Qigong and to soften the body. Closing, letting everything release and sink down. Your awareness settles into that space beneath your palms, into the center of your body, freeing your breath, letting everything settle and come to rest, especially your mind. Beautiful misty day here. Surprisingly warm, but we're supposed to get freezing temperatures again this week. And so I hope all these new little buds that are coming out don't die from the early warming and then the early chill again. And the same thing is true for humans. On the Chinese calendar, spring starts on Sunday. And it's just the very first little seedlings of spring that are coming out. The spring equinox is like the middle of spring. It's the most springy day. And so as we slowly creep out of winter and into spring, this is often a time when people will get sick because the weather is doing strange things and we are not immune. We're not an island. And so as things change, if we have early warmings or late coolings or unseasonable winds that hit us really hard and our body isn't ready, it can do strange things to our system. And so we want to make sure that we stay warm, stay covered up and safe and gentle. Oh, Celtic Festival Day. That's cool. First sign of spring. Yeah, we're on the same calendar. Yeah, in the Chinese cosmology, the yearly cycle, the new year starts on the 10th because that's the solar cycle, that the changing size of the Earth spinning around the sun, moving back to the right position. But the lunar cycle moves at a different pace, and they're always very close to each other. And the lunar cycle is that which brings the spring or the changes of the seasons. It's very interesting. I don't have a Mel here, so I get to read all the comments myself. Thank you for my socks. Oh yeah, first doing, then non-doing. It would depend on the translation. Again, I'd have to see what they're translating because so many translations are terrible. I don't trust that what you're reading is actually what it says. But I could guess that it's just that people in the beginning have a difficult time doing, non-doing, so they can only do doing. And so you give them the practice, not doing, until you can don't. The language is so weird in English, but I'm assuming that's what they're saying. But again, it would depend on what it is you're reading. You have to start sending me Chinese text, and then I'll tell you what it says. Translation to English is often very problematic. Then softening the shoulders here, softening this whole front corner of the shoulder. And you want to soften it this way. So as we relieve and release tension here, just like with the face, as we relieve away from the center, we are allowing a slight intention to let this relief travel this way down the arm. And we do this for all of these points. Gentle, comfortable circles. Again, not too deep. Don't push right past the fascial line. Let your movement, the warmth, and your awareness accumulate in this thin layer and in the spaces between the tissues that we're normally used to working with. Softening the center of the armpit, easing down through there. And then the same with the tops of the shoulder. Again, a reminder about softening the shoulder so that as the arm comes up, your shoulder actually relaxes. But if that's too hard and you can only do this, then you can use the help of your other hand to help release that until this learns to soften. Gently opening this whole area. If there's a center point for you of the tension, then you can emphasize comfortable, friendly circles there. Allowing that sense of kindness to accumulate in the tissues. Just gentle friendliness. Releasing the entire upper arm. If there are spaces that you know require a bit of extra attention for you, feel free to focus on those, especially as you've been learning acupoints and things that might be useful for your body in particular. And then large intestine 11 here, just at the end of the crease of the top of the arm. Gentle circles there. So I just point at it. And I will use the base of my thumb to release this. But you can use your whole hand. You can use your fingers, your thumb. Sometimes it's nice to use the small knuckle on the fist. But just make sure that you're not doing this as a muscular massage, but as a fascial release. I'll just keep reminding people because I know it's very easy to fall into the habit of trying to force a muscle to release. That's not what we're doing. And then as well, a few centimeters below that, a couple great points here, easing those open as well, if I was to point at them here. Two and three sun, the body inches below. And then from the inside line of the elbow here, this point just on the thumb side of this tendon, the soft spot, releasing there, this lung 5 point. Especially if you've had some medical trauma at this point, as many of us have in the hospital. Be very gentle here. Layers of fibrous tissue sometimes build up as a protective quality after trauma. And you want to soften them open. Notice that you can move at a pace that is too fast to relax to, and there's a pace where it's actually too slow for your system to soften to. Find the perfect in-between for you, which, as all of these techniques will, when you start to pay attention to how your body is opening and responding, what you require will change every day. And you just change. You base it not on the technique or what you see me doing or what you think is the right thing to do. You base it on your fascial line, this membranous tissue opening up, warming and softening, releasing. What your internal sense tells you is the most gentle, the most kind, most friendly thing you can do for your body without trying to force change or press ideas into it, encouraging it to let go. This is the point in the center of these two tendons, just above the wrist crease, as well as the opposite point on the back of the wrist. And then, with your fingertips softening open this line below the bone on the wrist, gentle, warming, grasping circles. You can soften here at the base of the thumb a bit. For many people, this is a point of great pain. We might even be able to say for most people. So I'm just including it for them. That sense of warmth and soothing soaking in. Take as long as you'd like. And then we'll move on to this large intestine 4 point here. Just in the center of the meat of the bit thumb. Gentle circles, helping to open that area of the thumb. Allowing the movement to radiate down toward the index finger. And then pulling off of each of the fingers, sending a wave of warmth and circulation to the tips of the fingers. And then softening the other side. Just as a reminder about posture, make sure the weight is resting appropriately, your body is upright and relaxed, not trying to hold a rigid posture, but instead using good posture as a way to allow your body to relax. Slumping and slouching is not relaxation. That's collapsing. Your body can't circulate or be free that way. It actually creates more tension, as maybe you've noticed. So instead we find upright posture and then we just release your body. Everything gets really soft and open and comfortable when you learn to do it right. So we're aiming to do it right. Just the weight of your hand. Softening all the way down around to the back of the arm here. Again, for many people, it's cold and undernourished, so we want to move some qi back here to the base of the elbow. Maybe you find it's more the front of your arm or the inside. So really listen to your body and just give it what it needs to be nourished. Gentle circulation. And then large intestine 11. And then large intestine 10 and 9 after that. You might find that on your dominant arm, these areas are especially traumatized, gripped. And so you want to take perhaps extra time in any of these spaces that you find are especially tangled and problematic, and just include this soothing quality. And then the inside of the elbow. Feel free to experiment with different kinds of contact, different parts of your body, different positions of your hands. Find the thing that helps you reach into the appropriate space with this sense of gentleness, loving presence and touch. And you'll start to feel this warm release as the qi flows through the tissue. You allow your awareness to rest in that space, and qi is allowed to accumulate and nourish that space. Comfortable, soft circles. If you find your mind wandering away, simply bring it back. Notice the sensation. And how do you bring it back into the present moment? You stop pushing it away. In the same way that how do you stop fighting gravity? You let go of the thing that's fighting gravity. Present moment's always here. You don't have to try to find it. You can only try to move away from it. So stop trying. I have a lot of friends who are therapists who are constantly offering great advice from their experience, and from psychologists to social workers, people that help people of all different kinds and stripes in different ways. And one person was saying that for various kinds of non-neurotypical people, for some of them, there's a group of people who have this ADHD, this attention hyperactive deficit disorder. Is that the right ADHD? Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And part of what's happening is there isn't enough energy to keep awareness resting. And part of that, from the Chinese medicine perspective, is kind of fatigue. There's a deficiency happening, so you're falling below the level of your ability to pay attention. And so softening your body, quieting your mind so it can rest, breathing, allowing your body to be nourished, sleeping well, eating well, these kinds of things allow enough energy so that the mind can actually calm down. So for neurotypical people, the mind may speed up because there's too much going on. But oftentimes, if you get really tired, the mind also speeds up and becomes a little wild, because that's a function of it trying to get what it needs by doing more. We do the same thing with stress. We do the same thing with anger. People will often self-medicate themselves with anger or stress. They're so tired, so they feel the need to create an adrenaline rush, so they give themselves a reason, usually unconsciously. But then they feel better for a time because all of this chi gets rushed up and you feel better. But of course, you're just making the deficiency worse. And so as we soothe our body, you may notice strange neurological effects. You may even start to feel really sleepy because you're no longer propping yourself up. And that's, in a way, a good sign, because you're removing those hyperstimulants that are not allowing you to nourish. ZhiCheng Shifu likes to use an example. He'll say, have you ever sat on an air mattress before? And people say, yes, of course. Have you ever sat on an air mattress that's not quite full enough? So you sit on it and you just fall instantly to the bottom of the mattress. So what do? If you don't pump it up, instead what you do is invite a bunch of friends over, and then they sit on the mattress, and then it lifts you up, and you say, okay, that's good. Because they're taking up that empty space with pressure, with tension. But of course, the second that they get up and leave, you hit the ground again, and you're back to your deflated mattress. And so that's how people treat their bodies. They pressurize themselves. We cross our legs, we cross our arms, we hold our breath, we push our mind really hard, get our heart rate going. And so we can't feel our own exhaustion. We're pressurizing ourselves so we feel full. We're making the space really small so that only a little bit of chi is enough to fill it. But it's much better, obviously, to learn how to instead go pump up the air mattress to restore your chi level. But to do that, first, you have to get everybody off of the mattress. You have to take away all of the stuff that's holding you in. And then suddenly your fatigue is exposed, but also what you're exposing is your opportunity to fill it up. Right? Right? So as you soften here, you may notice this sense of spaciness, or as you relax, some of you might just be feeling this fatigue coming on. What it is being exposed. The set isn't creating it. It's relieving all of that extra pressure as you make more space. And making more space is making more room and possibility for chi flow and healing to happen. So very often, the very first thing you have to let yourself do is hit the ground, be deflated, notice that space, and then learn how to nourish yourself so that you can slowly refill, and to be patient enough for that to happen. Closing. Your awareness sinking inside. Another wonderful thing about this particular way of the brain working, this ADHD, what we have this label, it's almost like a clinicalized label. It's just a different way for the mind and the nervous system to function. And ADHD people are famously wonderful for noticing a lot. They're very sensitive to a lot of things going on because their mind is always looking for more things to notice. And so if you're just sitting in a world that maybe you've grown numb to, the mind has to run around and do other things. So a really wonderful meditation, according to this teacher, for ADHD people is somatic meditation. You're feeling your body because there is always more detail to notice. Even just in a small area, your mind can grow more and more clear and discover more and more things going on. And it's always present and it's always changing. You don't have to contemplate nothingness or something. You can watch this area, for instance, and as your hands rest there and your mind accumulates there, it starts to grow warm. You might feel movement, vibration. Eventually, it turns into great pleasure. All kinds of changes happen just from your awareness there. And if you let yourself be interested enough, then it takes up all that slack for the people whose attention feels the need to jump around because it's looking for more. Instead of looking for more in 1,000 places, look for more in one. And so you actually end up having a kind of superpower in related to body meditation. Warming the sternum. Warming the solar plexus. Softening that space just at the base of the sternum, the point where the ribs come together, easing that space open. That tends to grip due to emotionality and the tendency to freeze the breath. Also a little bit below that point. Softening here, the space that we tend to freeze, both because we hold our breath, but also because so many people in our culture are terrified of having a human shape. So we grip and hold our belly and we don't allow any movement through our abdomen, the place where we want to be the most soft. So allow this warm recognition to soak in, soothe all of this tension, scar tissue, layers of fascial webbing. Let things open. Let it release your breath. Softening the line beneath the ribs. Moving toward that same point. Easing all of this open. As well as letting your fingertips sink beneath the surface, tracing the line between the ribs, following your body shape. Find the direction that your ribs go and trace that line down toward the center. And again, this is an area that tends to collect and accumulate emotional repression, tension, anger, sometimes rage, frustration, guilt, shame. It's all the same emotional spectrum of gripping on holding onto something. And so it likes to accumulate in this area of the body. And that particular poison has an antidote. And that antidote is kindness, friendliness, generosity, humaneness, creative expression, these qualities. So allow yourself to generate that feeling of unconditional friendliness and let that soak into the tissues to help relieve some of the trauma of emotional accumulation. Warming across the navel, all of these points here, stomach channel, spleen channel, liver channel, all of these channels we've been working with and learning. Gentle and soft. And then circling successively larger and larger circles, eventually covering the entire abdominal area. Your awareness soaking in the fascial layer beneath the skin on top of the abdominal musculature, but also beneath and around the internal organs. Both directions. Eventually, it's possible to feel all different layers of depth throughout your whole body. Your awareness soaks in, settling. Black tea. Very nice. Warming and releasing this huge fascial sheath, aponeurosis of the whole lower back. So we've been working on learning all 12 channels, the main channels on the arms and legs. So if you want to, you can go through and remind yourself about each of the various channels that runs to the fingers that we practiced, all 6 channels, 2 on the little finger. And we've worked on the spleen channel, and we've worked on the liver channel that run to the big toe. Hopefully you're creating memory images, memory tools for those as we go. The next one over that runs to the second toe is the stomach channel. And so we will emphasize that today. And this point that we often work on here, this soft spot here in the center, this is stomach 30. So this is, in a way, the first point on the leg. So just easing that line open, emphasizing the downward direction for all of these. We're constantly releasing long for this membrane. And then the gallbladder channel on the side of the leg. Usually a sensitive spot for most people. You can warm it with your fingertips, your palms, base of the thumb. If this is an area of particular constraint for you, I know for at least one of you, it's a really big problem. Spend as much time as you need here, warming and releasing. And then continuing down the stomach channel, we started here. It travels this way to the outside of the knee. This stomach point here, stomach 34 point that we've been working on. It's just in line with the outside of the kneecap. The base, the center of this portion of the quadriceps muscle here. Again, you can use your fingertips, your thumb, your whole palm, base of your thumb, whatever it is that works for you, that you notice a sense of spreading comfort. Every day will be different, so pay attention. Find what it is that helps you feel the most release. And then just follow that release, not the technique. Keeping your leg, your breath free. And then just for the sake of today's practice, following this channel from here to here, and now follow straight down the channel on the outside of the kneecap to stomach 36. At the top of the shin bone here, just beneath the head of the shin bone, tibialis, the tibia, there's an anterior tibialis muscle that runs here. Find the top of that, right in the very center of that musculature. Stomach 36, a marvelous point. One of the main points in the body worth learning about. Very, very nourishing for the chi. Worth spending time warming and opening it every day. Remember that as you lean forward, you're not collapsing. Please don't do this kind of thing or this kind of thing, or I don't know how else people might try it. Fold from your hip, keep your spine long, your neck relaxed. If you cannot do this, then find a different way to stimulate these points so that you're not having to hold your breath or brace yourself. You don't want to undo all of this good work that you've been doing for yourself. And then just to the outside and a little above that, gallbladder 34. We'll do a little more work on it when we hit the gallbladder channel. Then we skip this point here, stomach 10, just above the knee, on the inside of the kneecap. And yesterday we also did some work on this liver point here. So you can let your fingertips drape there as well and warm and open that. Wow. The sun is deciding to come out over the mountain next to us, and everything is draped in mist. So beautiful. Gosh. And then that space on the back of the knee and the crease, popliteal crease of the knee, between those two tendons, there's a soft spot. You want to just allow your fingers to warm and release that. Comfortable, light pressure. Let your awareness soak into that membrane over the top of everything. And then full circles. Remember, if you happen to live in a cold place, to try to keep your knees and your feet, your belly and your lower back warm all the time. It is not good for you to let your body get too cold and then not be able to warm up. It's fine if you want to get cold once in a while and then you have zero problem warming yourself back up. But for most people, the cold just creates stagnation and accumulates in your joints over time. I have lots of stories about treating people for that. Got to work with one Shinto priest who had spent his life doing his morning ritual bath in the river that was always cold. And it had just destroyed his body's ability to circulate and warm itself. Huge varicose veins and constant headaches and pain, heart troubles. Very nice person. But wasn't a good practice for him. So especially if you live in a chilly place, please try to keep your body warm when you can. I know I have a big Scottish society here, Celtic contingent, Celtic conspiracy. So in those cold spaces, the highlands, please keep yourself warm when you can. Or at least get warm after you get cold. Softening the very center of the calf. That place just below the top of the V, at the bifurcation of the gastrocnemius, which is just a great fun thing to say. Continuing to keep your hands soft as you warm and release the tissues here, softening all the way down the Achilles. Releasing your calf. You can gently pull on the calf if you find that it's like a rock and maybe stuck to your fibula. And then releasing this musculature here. So this whole line that runs through this anterior tibialis muscle that runs down to the foot, this is the stomach channel line. And so as you release this musculature here, you're warming and helping to release the stomach channel. So allow your fingers to drape and gently open. If you're noticing you're having a lot of difficulty at any particular point, you could do it even just this way, softening down the way we do the rest of the body, choosing a particular spot and helping that layer of the fascia to open. Be very gentle. Same with the top of the ankle here. You can warm and release that point, including that while you do spleen 6 here, which we worked on yesterday a lot. This stomach channel continues down the front of the leg all the way to the second toe. So you can see this line as it continues down the top of the foot. And you could just follow that with your fingers if you'd like. But do try to make a connection. And then warming the bottom of your foot, that space between two tendons, and warming the top of the foot here. Thanks, Ali. I love myself a good Scottish terminology. Oh, Mags showed up and I didn't even say, "Oh, aye, the new." I missed my chance, Mags. I apologize. Ali, I still have no idea what it means. Softening open the calf, releasing around the Achilles, especially if you've done a lot of running in the past and you've done damage perhaps along this line of the shin, or you found that your Achilles has taken a lot of damage, then there's probably a lot of fascial wrapping and lining that you have to release. So you'd probably want to spend lots of extra time here softening. You know, I love learning lots of new languages, slowly picking up a bunch and slowly learning Scottish. I'm discovering that it's a completely separate language. A friend of mine is actually coming to visit next week, has been studying Gaelic, which I know is a separate line, I think, right? Or the Scottish and Irish Gaelic, I'm not really sure. But I plan to study from them as well. I'm here warming the whole stomach line, top of the ankle here as I release spleen 6. Easing open. Yeah, the shins take such a beating, the shin splints, all these micro tears, tiny bits of damage that accumulate over time that we can't heal in time. So common. It also happens to people just from wearing the wrong shoes. Amazing. So if you'd like to even just tug on this second toe, again, make this connection. If you have some way of remembering this second toe, some rhyme or some idea about it, connect it to the stomach, however you imagine the stomach. Maybe you imagine yourself, I have no idea. I remember seeing a very strange meme video where someone's second toe extended out like a straw and they were drinking from it. So maybe that's a way to remember it, like filling your stomach through your second toe. It's a very disturbing image in a way, but very memorable. So you can use that for all of these channels, all of your fingers. Just create one memorable image and you'll remember it. Piece of cake. Finish my tea. This little piggy had roast beef. Is that part of that rhyme? I wasn't sure if that was out there in Europe or if it was just a United States thing. I guess most things come from out there. Softening down. So I'll make small movements here. Two things. Remember that we are not stretching. That is not part of this practice. That is not what we're looking for. If you get to the feeling of stretching, you're actually pulling something too hard. It will not release because it's pulling back. That's what the stretching feeling is. So if we're going to become flexible, we want to become flexible the way a child is flexible, just by being soft. And so as I fold from here, I'm not collapsing in my back. I'm not tightening here. Feel if, as you create these motions, if you are pulling on your thighs to try to pull yourself down. And stop it. Your legs are actually lengthening this way, and your spine is actually lengthening this way. So your neck is getting longer, going around the circle in opposite directions. No stretch, just softness. It's a very different way to become flexible. Your body ends up being very different. It's able to relate to itself because it's not creating lines of tension and opposing force. You're not trying to do the mind over matter thing, where your mind is saying one thing and your body is saying something else. Instead, we learn to unite. Mind and body become one expression. And then circling the toes. As we've been working on with those movements through the feet, see if you can engage your feet. Circling the knees, getting movement all the way down at the base of the hips. You're not trying to exercise. Your legs are soft. If I just do this, you can see how soft my legs are. I'm just creating movement through here, using my legs. I'm engaging my ankles and my feet. I'm creating movement, but you don't want to hang on to your legs. Both directions. You can do a few of these kidney channel lengthening movements. Gripping with your feet gently, just really opening them around the circle, not trying to tighten them too much. Softening around the circle. Again, only as far as you can reach without tightening up your body. You're just folding at the hips, lengthening your head. Let's do one more. Lengthening your spine, folding around it. You'll notice my voice isn't strange because I'm not compressing my body. Soft is the way. Softness is the trick. I get exposed to so many various methods of practice, meditation and Qigong and martial arts, and all these people using these various special techniques to try to create these things. Force your mind to be quiet, like tricking your mind into being quiet or exhausting it or something. Forcing your breath to happen because you push and pull really hard on your diaphragm and it creates this change. And it's like, and the response in our system is always like, why don't you just relax? The same thing happens if you just let go. And on top of it, you're very soft. Like, we just learn how to let go. And so that's this practice. We're letting go of the fascial layer. We're letting go of our joints and our musculature. We're letting go of our breath. We let go of our mind, and our mind becomes perfectly still and quiet. It's just letting go. And so it's this doing, non-doing. So let's do that for just a moment. If you'd like to lie down, you're welcome to, if you've got space for it. I'll just make space here. Just for a couple of minutes or so, unless you'd like to lay longer. But you want to let everything fall open. Perhaps you can notice a sense of warmth and spreading fullness through your whole body, especially in that layer of the fascial membrane, at least what we're calling fascia for this set, but it's all the spaces in between. Your whole body is soft and open and easy. If you'd like to continue laying here, of course, feel free. And I will just move into a seated posture, just so I don't keep people longer than they have. But of course, as with all of the practices, you want to do them in a way that helps you the most. Tune in, listen. Listen by becoming still and quiet. Learning to listen is a primary skill in Taoism. And it comes not by enhancing your ability to hear and see things. You don't need to take a pill that gives you super skills, turning you into some kind of superhero. Instead, you become still enough and quiet enough so that you're not obstructed by your own noise, so that you can notice what's going on. Stillness, letting go. Your awareness soaks into the tissues. Everything becomes easy and free and comfortable. And we have a Mel. Hello. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. And I'll be here to look through the Dell pile and answer any questions. And if there's anybody else that has questions as well, of course, please feel free to ask. I've got a few minutes to answer, and Melanie just showed up, so we can apply her with questions.
Yeah, let me pull up the video.
I have it here. That's okay. I have all the questions here, though. Yeah. It looks like maybe I already answered most of the questions. Question when it comes to stretching. Lay it upon me. Happy to wait.
Cat stretching.
Cat stretching?
Yeah, Mag says cat stretching.
Oh.
This thing called pandiculation. Are you familiar?
Yeah, pandiculation is I think it's a way of the body. Actually, I was telling them the mattress, the empty mattress story, the air mattress example that Shrifu uses, that when you get tired.
Oh, yeah.
You
Such
kind
a
of
good image.
It's such a good image. And so one of the ways the body deals with fatigue, at least, and this is the way I've learned about the term, the body starts to hang on to things, and it makes you a little bit more awake. And you yawn and you stretch and you try to move, and it's a way of trying to get circulation into these areas that are stuck. At least that's the way that I've come to learn about it. Oh yeah, the morning stretch. That's a fine stretch. Actually, it's funny that you ask about it, because I had actually for a while made stretching a personal practice for me. And I'd worked on learning how to like extend that stretching period for minutes at a time. It was a whole personal practice that I took on that nobody ever recommended, but I thought it felt nice. And so I just figured out how to constantly change angles and stretch and stretch. And what I recognized, one, is that it can actually be exhausting, that kind of stretching, because it's a really big holding on. But if you're going to do it, and it kind of happens automatically, you actually want to stretch more like a cat does, since we're calling it cat stretching. That, are you guys heading out? Thanks, Chris. I'm glad you got to stick around. That, for instance, if I stretch my arm like this, like I go, and I stretch, that I can actually pull on myself, and I'm actually pushing against my own joint this way. I don't know if that's a good angle, right? So that I'm stretching and I'm going, and I'm pulling really hard with my tricep or something, and it's pulling here, and it's actually putting pressure on my joint this way. And that's actually not good for the joints. And so instead, what you would want to do is to stretch through and find a way to lengthen, so that as you're stretching, and this is what I experience now, so I know it's possible, that as I stretch, instead of stretching into my joints, you stretch through them lengthwise to the extremities. And so you're stretching going, and so that you're not feeling that pressure hitting the joint. And so that would be my recommendation. But it's a thing that everybody does. And so it's good. And it kind of wakes things up and it moves stuff around. But you can learn to do it in a way that's a little bit less aggressive to the joints and the tissues, especially as you get older. You want to be careful, because I actually know people that have hurt themselves stretching. And so you have to be, it's the morning stretch. And so you have to be careful. But if you do it in the right way, then instead all you're doing is invigorating circulation, and it goes the right direction instead of across the joints. And so that's one recommendation, especially if you tend to have muscular imbalances, like you're an athlete who has like a bike rider, for instance. They tend to have strength really huge on one side and not on the other side of their leg. And so they develop all kinds of knee problems because of this imbalance of strength. And so then for them, when they they're really strong here, for instance. And so if they were to stretch, they would have not enough support here. And so they could actually injure their knee by pulling too hard across the joint this way because there isn't enough holding it together this direction. And so that kind of thing is actually possible. Not to make it a big deal, but since you asked, it is a good thing to try to learn to stretch through rather than against or across. Yeah. I always thought of it as pandiculation actually as a tensing process. I should look it up.
That stretching, yawning feeling you do when you wake up in the morning. Oh man, that's so good. That's the best stretch. It's like I don't have to do anything. It's just my body already knows like exactly how to move. And it's so good.
It is a really nice feeling. That's why I turned it into a practice, because I'm like, oh, I should learn to make this into something that's really good for me, because it felt so nice. And so I would stretch for like minutes at a time, and I was exhausted afterward, but it felt so good. And then I learned about like not gripping the nervous system, not doing things like that. And so now it actually feels like a not good thing for me. So I stopped doing it.
Yeah. I'm thinking Mags just said exactly what I was thinking. Like that spontaneous stretching in a way that feels good, as if you were a cat, like very soft.
Right.
Yeah. Like you don't have to think about it.
That's right. Well, you see a cat do it and they go like out and they go,
yeah,
like comes out and their claws extend and stuff. Like they're going through, they're not going against.
Yeah.
And at least in my own body, and I've heard of people injuring their back and that kind of stuff because they're clearly going against the joint instead of through the joint. And so that's the only reason I mention it. It's one of those, since I've been doing all this research into back pain and what causes back spasms and back pain and stuff. That's one of the things, is that people will wake up in the morning, they're stiff, and then they do like their biggest stretch of the day right at that moment when they have no circulation, so they hurt themselves. But I think, if you're young and basically healthy, then go for it. You're fine. I just say it to say it out loud because I don't know who's going to watch this video in the future.
Yeah, Dell says through and not against. Something to think about. Yeah, our teacher says force should go through and not to.
That's right.
What you were just saying as well.
Through and not to. That's the key. Through the joint, not to the joint. You think you're the oldest here, Mags? I don't believe it. Youngest at heart.
Alistair says, see, I love the thing you say about moving through. I find I have found it easier to grow into a stretch rather than being a big lump bending into one.
That's right.
That's a really good way of putting it.
That's right. And you can feel yourself if you try to fold or move in a certain way, that you can like obstruct yourself, you end up being in your own way. Or if you can lengthen around and it changes it. Yeah. So that's a really good way to think of it. And usually the stuff people feel if they are getting really in touch with their body, and this is that skill of listening, and then it's more like, well, what is working for you? And there is no right or wrong. Is it helping you move in the right direction? Is it helping you become more still, more peaceful, more open? Are your tissues spreading? Is it aiding circulation? Is it softening certain aspects of your body, mind? And if that's happening, then it doesn't matter what the technique is. It works just fine. You could. That's why there are thousands of methods of Qigong and Taoism and things. People use music, people use calligraphy, people use sword work. I have swords here in the corner, and or drinking tea, and they can all become health practices as long as they're moving in the right direction. So it isn't like there's a right way to do it. There is a process happening in our body that we want to listen to, and then just do whatever is helping it. So it's really hard to speak for it. That's why there's no right diet or anything like that. It's what is it that's working for you, and to pay attention well enough to know if it's helping. So I love that.
Alistair says, like the wine leaning into the bottle, then become the glass, keeping it all in. Oh, cool. I call it inner and outer touch.
What does that mean, the wine leaning into the bottle?
And then becoming the glass, keeping it all in. I feel like that's a really beautiful metaphor. But yeah, I'm not sure if I fully understand it in the way that it's written.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know the languaging. Do you mean like that fluid quality of the body? Like how if you relax your insides, you can relax to Like we're tending to hold ourselves in. You can sort of relax out to the quality of your skin, like being held out as though liquid. I'm not sure if that's what you mean. I'm glad you came in at the last minute.
Yeah, me too. My meeting ended just like a few minutes ago.
Wow.
So. Alistair says we are both the liquid leaning in and then moving sense to being the bowl as such. Maybe like moving your awareness to becoming the bowl as such. So inside and outside, like seemingly become one sort of deal.
Could be.
I'm not sure.
We don't know what you mean, sir, but I love the image and it's a cool idea. I think I feel what you mean in the sense of this liquid internal sense. Yes. Okay, good. I have my little computer here, so.
John, please watch Kung Fu Cult Master with Jet Li when you get a chance. Want to know your thoughts on it.
Thank you. Thank you.
He does have a good laugh.
Oh, thanks.
He's known for his laugh. It's one of those contagious laughs that like disarms people and makes them feel seen and heard. It's wonderful.
Thank you. When I was a very little kid, when I was a baby, I had heard from my mom that I never cried, I only laughed. And so it's always been a part of my life. And then somewhere along the way as a toddler or something, I got traumatized a bunch. And I learned to not laugh. And so it wasn't until much later in my life that I started laughing again. And now you cannot stop it. I've actually gotten in trouble working in clinics and doctors' offices and hospitals for laughing too much.
My Shirfu says, when you laugh, you feel no pain.
True.
Yeah, I think of I think it was attributed to Mark Twain, the quote that's like, against the assault of laughter, nothing can stand. I love that one because I think it's so true. It feels that way.
Thank you, everybody. It's really nice having you. I appreciate you all very much. It's a beautiful day. Now it's sunny outside all of a sudden. That's amazing.
It is. I'm about to go for a walk.
Walking is good. Enjoy your practice.